Ahora continuamos con la participación de la profesora Leiyu. Ella se graduó como doctora en educación superior por la Universidad Normal de Beijing, BNU, en China, y en conjunto con la Universidad del Sur de California, USC, en Estados Unidos. Es profesora asociada en la Universidad China de Minería y Tecnología en Beijing, CUMTB, Escuela de Administración. También trabaja como subdirector de Asuntos Internacionales en este mismo lugar. Ha publicado más de 40 importantes artículos y capítulos académicos, informes de políticas y recomendaciones. Ha completado algunos proyectos nacionales de ciencias naturales y ciencias sociales y proyectos apoyados por el Departamento de Educación China. Ha trabajado como experto en políticas y capacitación para el Comité Nacional de Reforma. Now we continue with the Professor Leiyu. She is graduated as Joint PhD in Higher Education from Beijing Normal University, BNU, in China and University of Southern California, USC, USA. Associate Professor in China University of Mining and Technology in Beijing, CUNT, School of Management. Also worked as Deputy Director for International Affairs, CUNT. Had published more than 40 important academic articles and chapters, policy reports, and recommendations. Had completed some national natural science and social science projects and projects supported by the Department of Education in China. Had employed as policy and training expert for National Reform Committee.
Okay. Okay, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to be here to share some information about Chinese investment for higher education investment. So let's see what we're shared today. So let's see the first slide, the preview. Okay. We'll talk about, okay. Okay, we'll talk about the total investment in Chinese education. So that's including higher education and other education levels. A stated call of Chinese higher education investments. That's mainly about investors and their constructors. Okay, and the characteristic of higher education finance in China. Okay. So see the first slide, we will share the total investments in Chinese education. Actually, we are a very large country, so we invest a lot in our education. We can see from 2005, we already invest 0.8 trillion renminbi in our education. And in 2010, as the second largest country according to our GDP scale, we invested 2 trillion renminbi in our education. If you want to change that into US dollars, you only divide it 7. Okay. So until 2019, we invest like 5 trillion, okay, renminbi to our education. Among them, 4 trillion was invested by our government. 5 trillion renminbi is like more than 0.6 trillion US dollars. Okay. Okay, the next slide we will share. Because to make things clear, we may use the percentage of GDP. Okay. We can see from 1990s, we invest like 2.68% of our GDP to education. It's not until 2010 do we realize that we usually invest much less than the world average. So we set a goal in 2009. There's a policy saying that we will target it and 4% of our GDP to invest in education. And we reached the target in 2012. Okay, we can see that's the first year we exceed 4%. And after that, we usually have investment more than 4% of our GDP in education. The most recent data in 2019, we can see that we invest like more than 5% of our GDP into education. And our GDP is like 99.1 trillion renminbi. So 5 trillion to our education. Thank you very much. So the next slide. Compared to other countries around the world, we can see the world average in 2015. Okay, the GDP scale education investments in world average is like 4.7%. For China at that time, it's about 4.24%. So it's a little bit lower than the world average. No matter the high income and other countries, but still at a little lower than the average, okay, and much lower than the high income countries. We can see compared to the countries, okay, the high income countries, we can see that they invest a lot in their education. So we think there is a collection in the education investment and the development status. Okay, thank you. The next slide. We can see, so how did our higher education get? Okay, we can see China spent most of their investment, okay, education investments in compulsory education. For China, it's like 9 years compulsory education for the primary school and junior high school. Okay, 9 years. We can see that we spend more than 40%. It's like 45 to 55% in our compulsory education. For higher education, we can see in the chart, it's about 20 to 30% for our higher education. So that's still a lot of money. If we can see the next chart, okay, we must know how large is the higher education in China. Okay, we can see the next slides will introduce you some scales and some main informations in China higher education. We can see in China, nowadays, we have the largest number of university students. In 2019, we can see more than 40 million students were enrolled, okay, in PR China. And from 1998, we have a new, okay, policy saying that we will enroll more people into the college. So we can see after 2019, it's a very important year for us that more than 50% of the students who at the 15 to 64, okay, at a very good age, they can enroll in the university, okay. So we can see now we entered, everybody can get higher education if they graduate from high school. Okay. But senior high is not free, okay, in China. Okay, see the next slides, we could see how many universities are there in China. We can see it's growing very fast. 1949 is the first year the PR China was established. At that time, we have only 205 universities. But we can see in 1961, we have 1,289 universities. But at that time, and we can see the university is virus. So we have regulations to limit the spread of the universities. So, and then after the Cultural Revolution, it decreased very quickly. But nowadays, it still increased. So perhaps we are the second largest country who have the most number of universities among the world. Okay, in 2019, we have 2,688 universities in China, okay, legally, okay. And among them, 757 are private universities, okay. And among 757 private universities, there are 257 what called independent college. What is called independent college means that's the public sponsored and the private would invest, okay. So we can see the next slide. The investments for 2019, we can see in 2019, national finance education expenditure was 4 trillion, okay. An increase of 8.25 over the previous year. The total expenditure for higher education nationwide is 1.35 trillion yuan. That's about 0.19 trillion US dollars, an increase of 11.99. Okay, the per capita spend had increased by 6.6 because the student enroll has still enlarged, okay, from year to year. And this is the most important year since we exceed 50% of the enrollment rate. 50%. So professional education, that means professional higher education, had earned like 17.8% of the whole total investment. Okay. So nowadays we really emphasis on the professional education. So the next slide we will see the upper graph shows the situation in China, and the lower chart shows the situation in the developed regions. We can see from the upper graph the total investment, okay, proportion to GDP for China is around 1.4% from 2005 to 2015. But compared to the developed regions, we can see for OECD countries, average is about 1.6% mostly. And for EU countries, the 22 countries, the average is about 1.4%. So we're about the same, okay, page. Okay, we can see the next slide. The structures of the higher education. Okay, we can see the investments. Of course, the government is still the main investor. Okay, for China, the upper one is for China, and the lower one is for the developed regions. We can see for China, the government invests more than 40%, and nowadays it's like 60%. So this is an increase in investment. Okay, and the non-government was decreased, but we can see among them, family investments is also very important. Okay, that means the tuition fee you had to pay, right? Okay, and also from the social side, mostly donation and things like that. Okay, but nowadays the government investment is about 60%, a little bit more than 60%. But for OECD countries, okay, we can see that government really invests more than that of China. Actually, it's more than 70%. It's a 10% higher than that of China. So who is the Republic country, right? The EU 22 average, we can say 80%, even higher than that of China. So somebody said that China have no private institutions, but no, that's not true. Okay, you can see the next slide. The non-governmental investments for Chinese higher education. We can see about 28% of our university are private run. But we can see the private universities, their investment, okay, we can see percentage, 0.85%, okay. So they were not the main investors, okay. They are always very small in scales, although they have a number like 28%, but they are very small. But the other public universities used to tend to be very large universities, especially nationwide universities. We can see the donation, okay, contribute like 0.73 and average like 0.57% of the investment for our higher education. Tuition fees is quite important, okay. But it is decreasing. It's like 2007 to 2015, okay, the contribution from the tuition fee is decreasing because the tuition fee is never increased. Whenever you want to upgrade the tuition standard, the policies and the people were saying that would not be a very good thing. So they couldn't really upgrade their tuition fee. So the tuition fee actually remains still, okay, for like 10 years or more than 10 years, okay. They contribute like average of 28% of the non-governmental investment for higher education. And other business would support like the university may run the hospitals or technical companies or other non-degree training programs like that, okay. So they can earn other business fees for supporting the higher education institutions. So the average for them is like 9.96. So also our university could rent our rules to other institutions to earn some money to support themselves, okay. The next slide we will see for 2020 there is a decrease because of the virus, okay, that's understandable. The Ministry of Education has some adjustment have been made to budget of higher education that's reduced our investment from to 1.06 trillion yuan. Actually in 2019 it's 1.35 trillion yuan, okay. So that's a large decrease, okay. It means the boarding fee is lower, and also you can delay your opening in the next semester or the whole the half year, right? So you may stand for yourself. And among them, the research fee had been still on the rise. So research is still very important. So government will still grant a lot of research, okay, and the projection fees, okay, to other universities. So the next slide, we will talk about higher education financing China, okay, because we know the government is still the main investors, so there are some characteristics of a higher education finance in China. So the main form for Chinese government allocation is like basic expenditure plus the project expenditure. The basic expenditure based on students and faculty enrolled, that means per capita. So the more students you enroll, the more you get. And the second part, okay, the first part is about 60%. For the second part, project expenditure is like 40%. And as we all know, for China, the very famous project is called the world-class universities and the world-class disciplines building. So there are special project allocations specially allocated for them. And also we have special projects for the university, especially related to some industries, and also especially in professional training. Okay. And second one, local and central government would cooperate in supporting universities at colleges. There are only 72 universities, okay, belong to the Ministry of Education alone. So all the other more than 2,000 universities are supported by local government and the central government, okay, according to their positioning and the contributions. Okay. The third, the academic performance will be an important indicator in allocation. Of course, government thinks that research and academia may make special contributions in future development and strategic development for China. So academic performance would be one of the most important thing for China. Okay. So if they can write more papers and make more, okay, international influence, that means they could earn more money, especially the project expenditures. Okay, the last one is the donation alumni giving has greatly increased in recent years. Okay, people were getting rich, and the first choice for donation in China is alumni giving. Okay,